Welcome to the Zach Brown Show, the show that introduces you to old friends for the first time. I'm your host, Zach Brown. On this episode, I talk with Kendall Faust. We talk about our fascination with documenting life through video, working in the news, as well as performing live for an audience, and how to get out of the creative rut. All that and more after this. If you're like me, you probably wear clothes every day. You wake up and wonder, what am I going to wear today? The same old boring shirt as yesterday? No thanks. But don't worry, I've got you covered. You can order your very own Zach Brown Show t-shirt today. Visit tpublic.com and search The Zach Brown Show. In addition to t-shirts, you can get other fun logo gear like mugs, hats, magnets, and more. It's your Zach Brown Show gear only on tpublic.com. Well, Kendall, welcome to The Zach Brown Show. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Kendall and I have known each other for virtually our entire life. The way that the paths have crossed has been kind of wild. I think he's a little older than I am. So I think back in kids' church days, you were kind of like my cousin's age, and your sister and my sister hung out. And it wasn't until later in life that we really became peers in all the different things that we were doing. So I'm kind of really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, actually. I was like, you might be a contender for one of the oldest friends that I have.
Yeah.
I have. There's a friend of mine that we've been friends since we were 5-6 years old, but that was right there in that time frame. I mean, I was, when the Brownsville revival, when that started, that was where I met you. I don't know how detailed you get on these things, or if you delete stuff like that.
As detailed as we want to
go. Okay. But yeah, that's where we met. And I was just thinking about that today. I was like, man, that was a long time ago, 30 plus years. So
it's wild.
It is wild.
So one of the places where we really spent a lot of our time getting to know each other was at our local ABC television station. When did your interest in media and cameras and things like that, where did that start for you?
So I think, man, when I was a kid, when I was really young, I think I've listened to some of the podcasts, some of your podcasts. I actually just finished today. I was listening through the one about you, where Jim Carmack interviews you.
Yeah.
That was really good. So there's a lot of places I think that yours and my path crossed that we didn't even know about. Mm-hmm. One of those is that I grew up loving having a video camera in my hand at a very young age. I would steal my grandparents' camcorder and just make videos with me and my sister, all my cousins, friends. We would. I just loved being able to watch myself back later, or watch something that we produced back later. Mm-hmm. That was always something that was really fun. So that was it. I think even earlier than that, it was when I was a toddler, a baby, on through a real young child, being able to watch those videos back with my grandparents and my family. We had I don't know if you guys did this, but we had family movie nights where we would watch back old tapes of something that happened the year prior. I don't know if that's a thing that other
we did it all the time.
Did you do it?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, so I think in that sparked my interest in just documenting things. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I've done a deep dive on myself on what is it about, video cameras? It's not the technical, it's not the ins and outs of, I don't really care to be a director or producer or any of this stuff. I just like documenting things, myself and my friends and my world, and things that interest me and things that don't, just documenting,
Yeah.
And so when we would have those family movie nights, it was I get to see, myself 2 years ago. I was 5, but I'm I get to see myself at 3, this and what mom looked like and what dad looked like. And then there's stuff that predates my existence that I can watch, I want to be a part of this process. I want to be a part of the the documenting game.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like that's the core of it. You want to cut to like the core of why I am interested in video. That's the interest, is that like, I guess you would say I'm a documentarian at heart, but that's it. I love documenting things. I love watching documentaries. I love watching back home videos. I like, I was listening to your podcast about you documenting things with, your friends. I'd be interested in seeing stuff like that, even of your world, like that interests me. That's cool. So
it's interesting because I think I've said this before, probably on this show, that we're the most documented generation in history. Like our grandkids and generations, upon generations, are never going to have to guess what we looked like, sounded like, what we did. Like we have snippets of maybe our grandparents and stuff. So it's interesting, like that our generation has really started that. So I think like, you talking about family movie night, and man, I missed that because it was so great. But now everybody has a camera in their hand, like Instagram and TikTok and whatever it is, everybody's posting videos. So the idea of gathering around with your family to sit and watch is just kind of dying off because we're already so just saturated in like today. What did you video today? Well, here's a post. It's instant and it's posted. There's not a lot of like, nostalgia or looking back because like we're already looking at it as it's happening. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a Reliant K song called Look On Up. And are you familiar with it? Have you heard it? Yeah. I think he says like, I remember when a photograph was worth 1,000 words, but now 1,000 pictures come my way every day. And I like them all the same, but they can't take my breath away. Like those are the lyrics of the song. And I'm like, man, that's so clever because that is exactly what you're talking about. We're just inundated with it to where we're numb to like, it was a beautiful sunset today. And like everyone shared it,
Yeah.
But
and
like,
scroll and keep scrolling.
And scroll and not like enjoy the moment of like, I don't have to take a picture of this and share it. I can just like enjoy it. And that's actually what that song is about. Like look on up, not put a filter between me and what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
Just to share it with you. So, but no, it's great. It's a beautiful thing. And, maybe something that like we should learn how to regulate ourselves better, and maybe we've started to do that. We've started to like sense that we are the most documented, but in that vein, isn't it funny though, that we don't have those movie nights, we don't have that mechanical aspect of like put in a VHS tape into a VCR and watch back something, I saw you post about it, like you said. So it's funny.
So you grew up with, your camcorder documenting, family life or whatever. What were the steps in between, running around like young Kendall to walking through the doors at WEAR?
Man. So I'll be like, just touch and go with a few things real quick, just cause, we could go in depth, but there's no need to on this. I think the biggest highlight was going from making those movies and documenting, with that camcorder growing up, making claymations with friends, making, stop motion stuff, whatever, to there was my dad was interested in being a part of the camera team at Brownsville, where we met. And
for those of you who don't know, that just a very large church with an incredible production department.
Yeah. And at the time there was a revival going on, and there was a big need for volunteers for the camera crew, the camera operators that sat through the service and would video the worship service and the preaching. So long story short on that, I must have been I know I was 5'6" when we started going. But my dad started volunteering and noticed that there was a need because he saw some cameras that were like empty, the seats that were empty. And he knocked on the television room door and was like, "Hey, I noticed that there's some seats that are empty and I want to be a part of this. I want to help where I think that there's a need." And that's something that he had the interest in. A long story short on that, he started running camera because they were like, man, we've been praying for people to volunteer. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
You just knocked on the door. This is awesome. So, so he started doing that. And I would sit with him by the camera when I was very young, 5, 6, 7. And between like, I guess 6 and 7, somewhere in there, he was volunteering year after year. And it was great. It was really cool. Watching him do that. But there was one night that he was like, hey, you don't want to jump on headset and just hear what the director's saying. Mm-hmm. And it was Steve Whitehead. You know who Steve Whitehead is, but and so he was directing that night, and Steve was like, hey, you want to, like, he was talking to me because my dad told him that he was putting me on the headset. He's like, yeah, talk to him. And he's like, no, let him run the camera, And I was like, no, I can't. Like, I'm just a kid, He's like, no, you just follow my direction. That's what I'm doing. I'm a director. Yeah. And I thought that was the coolest thing because he let me do it. And I started, and he was right then and there is when I started understanding. He was teaching me rule of thirds. I remember that moment when he was teaching me how to frame up, like, give the pastor lead room, right? Mm-hmm. Like don't cut off his head, but don't make him look like he should be wearing a top hat. Give him the perfect headspace. Right there, I was 7, maybe 8. I don't remember the exact year. Yeah, but I know I was very young, and I was like, man, this is cool. Like, this is fascinating. Like, I had been documenting, but I'd been doing it, cinema verite style. Like, just run and gun. I'm just a kid with a camera. Just hit record and let's do this, Mm-hmm. But he was teaching me the ins and outs and the rules of, like, how to do it professionally. And that was it. Like, right then and there, I knew. I was like, man, this would be really cool to do. And from that point on, I got involved in helping with the camera crew there. And then from there, I, met so many other folks that helped me learn how to run less than basic gear, like jib cameras and fully motorized, swinging cameras and handheld. That was a whole different beast. So anyway, that's like all in the weeds, just to say that was like the biggest highlight, the biggest jump from just like being interested in documenting, and then jumping from that into the technical, and then all the way from that moment, it just was so natural to me, because I already loved documenting. So I knew we were capturing this subject or whatever the goal was, but I was just learning the ins and outs of how to do it professionally. Yeah. And so that just kind of like one thing led to the other to lead me into the first jump. Wasn't WEAR from there. It was actually WSRE. That's right. I forgot you worked there. Yeah. So I had some friends who, in high school, I was in the broadcast class in high school. And that, like, man, there's so many little stories here that I could tell, but like just getting into that was like just a real cool thing. I was playing football and like I missed the cutoff and I quit football, and then I joined very late with a crazy exception to the rule for only me to do that in high school. And it was like, just a cool little process that all of that taught me more, and then led me into WSRE, and then WSRE in turn led me to EAR, WEAR. And then from there I went to Fox 10 in Mobile. Mm-hmm. And then full circle went from Fox 10 back to a lot of the crew that I used to work with at Brownsville, who taught me a lot of the early camera work at Navy Federal in Pensacola. Yeah. So I worked with like all the crew, a lot of folks that too, that were on the audiovisual team or still on their team in Pensacola. Sorry, that's funny. A lot.
It's good because it's just this big picture. And I just love, like, Pensacola is so spread out. It's like the most spread out small town ever, because, you spend any amount of time there and you're going to quickly know everybody in that one circle. And, like you're saying, the WSRE, which is like the PBS station, and, WEAR, then quickly these circles are very much overlapping. And when you're doing something in the production realm, whether it be football or baseball or news or whatever, you're quickly going to hear a lot of the same names and meet a lot of the same like photojournalists and all these things. And it's so cool how you can quickly build this network and you just know everybody.
Yeah, it is cool.
Now, when you were at WSRE, did you ever get to spend any time with Jill Hubbs?
I did. Yeah. I don't remember. I don't remember her title at the time, but yeah, I spent a lot of time with her. She was always. I remember her always being kind of like the MC and the wrangler of bands. Some with a show that we produced called Studio Amped. I think they still produce that.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
So, and that was one of my favorites to film. That's where I really, really got to turn up the heat in like handheld camera operator. And that was a lot of fun. But yeah, Jill was there. She's still there. I think she is. Wait, she's moved all the way up.
As far as I know, like Jill's like the queen of PBS, and I'm going to have her on the show at some point in the near future.
Awesome.
I've already started a conversation with her, so
that'll be great.
Thank Jill. She's very, very special.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, okay, we got to talk about Channel 3 because we're both there.
We do. Yeah.
It's like the Wild West. When you grow up, this is your local news station, and you see these anchors, and in Pensacola, the name Sue Strawn and the name Bob Solarski, like they've been on TV since before Methuselah walked the earth somehow. And it's just amazing that they are kind of the standard for your local news anchors through everything, So talk about going from that place of growing up watching the news to then working, because you started in the studio, correct?
I did. I started doing exactly what you did there, I believe. Production assistant. Yep. Yeah. Well, first I want to preface by saying everybody warned me at WSRE not to go to WEAR. And I don't say that in a negative way. I was like, I was loving WSRE, and then, this was around the time where they cut the government funding for PBS. And so, they cut a lot of hours. So I was loving it, man. It was like the best job ever. But, cause we documented fun things. I mean, I got to go up on a hot air balloon, and like document that and all. But to answer your question, jumping to WEAR, I finally got an interview and talked to Jack, who you and I both know. And, Jack told me, that he moved my resume up to the top based on all the folks that recommended me from WSRE who swore they weren't going to recommend me because they were like, man, you're a young, innocent kid. We don't want to see you get corrupted by news. That was the big thing, right? It was like, news is like, it's a hard business, you know? And we know who you are and the kind of person that you are. And look, they weren't wrong. Like it was tough going from, PBS to local, just run and gun, hard hitting news. Yeah. I will say this though, Jack hired me and I was a production assistant for a year and some change. I think it was like right under a year. And he tried his hardest to keep me on the production side of things, which is the safer, the better side, Yeah. I have to say that from working both, and Jack and I still to this day, I'll see him oftentimes in Pensacola working like white tie rock ensemble events and stuff, and we'll catch up, and he's like, man, yeah, I tried to keep you away from the news side of things, but you had to go do that. And I was like, well, it seemed cooler and it was better pay and all the things, so. But to go back to your question, so being a production assistant was awesome at WEAR. It was fun because you were in the studio all the time with Bob and Sue and Jim and Will, Christian, Jared,
Molly, Alan, Dan.
Molly, Alan, Dan, man. Yeah, like they're all legendary. They're all legendary. Dan recently retired.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
Guy'd been there for what, 38 years or something
goodness.
insane like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make him feel older than anything, but my dad and I were watching the last day he was on air, the retirement palooza. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I remember him reporting on me playing football in high school, you know? I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, and he looks great, you know, he looks young.
He's ageless.
It's awesome. Yeah.
He's so ageless. Cool. Love Dan.
I don't know if I answered your question, Zach. What was
just talking about like coming into the studio and experiencing going from, you know, PBS, which is, you know, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers and documentaries, to the hard hitting news and, you know, just the difference of that world and what you were learning in that time.
Yeah. So it was a huge shock. It was a bigger shock going from the production side to the news side. That was like where it was, you know, it was, I think you said this too when Jim Carmack was interviewing you, but you know, it is tough going through the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 10 o'clock, especially if it's like bad news leading.
Yeah.
Which most nights it is. Most nights, unfortunately, bad news, it isn't that people love to hear bad news. It's that we as human beings are hardwired with fight or flight. And so we are worried about ourselves and about the people that we love. So we want to tune in to see, was that shark attack at my beach? Was my mom out there? Was my girlfriend out there? Was my sister? Was, you know, dad, my friends? Or was that house fire near my house? Or was how close was that to was this like child that was shot, you know, was that somebody that I know? Or what? We have this fight or flight of like alarm where that is what ends up getting more eyeballs on the screens that we have, you know, the TV, the cell phone, the laptop. And so that in turn is able to, you can take that to the advertisers and say, look, we have more eyeballs than the next guy. And so you should pay us more for these ads because we got more people watching. We led with if it bleeds, it leads.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, exactly.
You know, but that's it. I think maybe some people intentionally, but a lot of people unintentionally exploit the fight or flight in humans, and that's what ends up coming through. So you're 100% right. It coming from WSRE to WAR was a huge shock because you're like, man, I am now inundated with good and a lot of bad news.
Yeah.
All the time. And so it's like a hard shift. The cool part about it, if I can talk about that for a second, is just the people. Like, you know this, but you're surrounded by people in the studio who are just, I mean, they're on TV for a reason. They can turn the professional on, but they're entertainers too. I mean, they're like, and everybody in there, everybody even behind the scenes, they're at the news station because that it draws a certain kind of person that is just a creative, you know, somebody who thinks differently, who thinks, you know, they want to entertain people. They want people to laugh and to have it. And so behind a lot of those awful stories, you have to be careful with how you say this because you're not grieving. You're also having to laugh and be lighthearted while all of that is like being inundated in your world, you know? So,
I mean, not to compare it to war, but you know, it's like watching MASH where they're in the middle of fight or flight. They're doing surgery where it's just this awful thing all day long. And all they're doing is just making each other laugh. Like you're saying, these entertainers, I don't know if I've laughed as much on a job as I ever did at that place. Between Will Kennedy, Jim Carmack, like Dan Shugart, Christian Garman, like Jared Willetts, these are the funniest people. Even when they are like devastatingly brutal with their like jabs and jokes at other people. I mean, it's like Don Rickles. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's hurting me funny. And there's some jokes that I'm like, I can't even relay those on the podcast because they are either so blue or just specifically directed at individuals in the room. And we could talk about these off air, but just like the things that just like, gosh, that's so funny. And
It is, man.
the conversations going on in the headset, and like John Cothran, God bless him, one of the like funniest guys that I've ever been around.
Oh, he's so funny,
John.
so
I hope
funny.
you listen to this, and you just like made my 3 years while I was there.
Yes.
There's just so many people that just everybody's a character. Like whether they're in the broadcast room, or they're in the they're in sales, they're in engineering, they're the bodiless voices from Master Control. There's just all the different people like running in Steve in sales, and just all the different people that you're like, it is a TV show. Like it is The Office, it's news radio, it is bananas. And you can go from like the most devastating news story to a sweet little like puff piece that you're like, all right, like, why do we put this on the air? But you're like, well, we got to bring the people back. We just took them to the depths of their emotions. Now we have to show that there's like a book drive and the Chick-fil-A cows out there. Why? Yeah. Because that's what we need in our life.
Yep. Yeah. That's so funny. That is so true. Yeah.
Our conversation continues after this.
Hi, you having a great time?
Looking for the perfect place to unwind after a long day? Welcome to the Brass Mallard, your neighborhood escape for great food, craft brews, and unforgettable vibes. At the Brass Mallard, we're all about the unexpected. No sports on the TV, just great conversation, delicious food, and an atmosphere that feels like home. From barbecue chicken and perfectly grilled steaks to our famous house-made rosemary bread, every bite is packed with flavor. Oh, and did we mention? We serve schnapps. Why? Honestly, we're not sure, but it's here, it's tasty, and we're all about it. Located at the corner of Laverne and Grady, we're right where your good times begin. Gather your friends, pull up a chair, and hear stories you've definitely heard before. The Brass Mallard, where flavor takes flight. All right, let's get back to the show. I think about like the different seasons that you go through, especially like when I started, we were a couple months out before an election. So just the wild, the chaos that is that. We had a huge rainstorm, and tons of people like lost their homes, and, a bridge collapsed, and, half of scenic, highway got like just disappeared, wild stuff. Tell me about some of your more impactful experiences that you remember from your time. Cause you went from, actually took over your position, at being a production assistant, and then you shifted to being a photojournalist, following out the reporters and things like that. What are some different events that really like stand out to you, and you're like, this marked me. This was like, adds to my tool belt of wisdom. This helps me now look at production and filming in a whole new way. What are some things that stand out to you?
Well, I always joke about this, but I think it's becoming more true. I'm probably going to write a book.
Do it.
Just about being a photojournalist in news. There's been documentaries made. The movie was the Jake Gyllenhaal movie with Nightcrawler. I don't know if you've seen that. It's pretty crazy. I don't recommend it, but
that's what I always referred to us on the night shift. We were Nightcrawlers.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a documentary too on Netflix. I think they brought it back. I don't know if they're renewing it for a second season, but it's crazy. It's about stringers in LA, and they sell news pieces to news stations who don't staff their crew with photojournalists between the hours of, I don't know, like 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. Okay. And I watched that while I was working. This is when I was at Fox 10 in Mobile. And I watched that and was like, man, this is like 100% how it is. It's just, that's a bigger market.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that I could tell about that. I'll start lighthearted and just say that like how they got me hook, line, and sinker was the first week that I worked as a photojournalist. the news director at the time came to me and was like, "Hey, man, I already asked everybody else, so don't feel bad if you don't want to do this. But I just figured like no other photojournalist wants to do this. But the Blue Angels are flying this weekend for their homecoming show, and they're looking for somebody to fly with Fat Albert, like in the show. They want somebody to document in the cargo area of the plane with Anthony Purra was going to be the reporter that flew, and Anthony was like gung ho. He's like, "Man, this is great. I get to fly with the Blue Angels. You know, it's Fat Albert, but like, goodness, it's Fat Albert. Like, that's awesome." I was like, there was no hesitation. I was like, yes. Did everybody else said no to that? How? Like, how did you? I'm brand new. How did I get to slide into this? Role? Like it was incredible. And so I was like, oh, if this is what it is, man, I'm sold. Like, this is great. And then the next week I'm at some like really boring sewing convention or something that I'm getting B-roll like for an hour. I'm like stuck at literally something that's just really boring to me. And then the following week I'm at like I was literally asked, and you don't have to put this on if it's too graphic, but I was literally asked, by the weekend producer at the time. He's like, "Hey, I need you to go to this house. There was somebody who was shot, and it ended up being a 2-year-old boy."
Oh, man.
And he ended up dying. He had found his parents' gun under their bed and was like playing with it, and ended up shooting himself. And
horrible.
The parents were distraught, and there was, it was a big scene, and I was asked to go out there and shoot video of like the house and the scene and everything, and it felt very strange. And then, and I think that the producer was new also, and he asked like, "Hey, can you get any sound?" Which is translation for, "Can you get any interviews? Like, can you get people to talk? Like, maybe the parents want to talk." And I was like, straight up just said, "No, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't, I'm telling you right now, I can tell that this is a very like volatile scene, and I understand that that's not like, we don't need to do that, and I was ready to go toe to toe, but it was very understandable. Like, okay, well, if you think that it's, not, and I'm like, well, you got to understand like the scenario we're in here. I mean, just, this isn't, like, let's do what we have to do. We can talk about this, but let's be very respectful. So anyway, that was like early on, going from that high of like, I got to fly with the Blue Angels to like, there's like the boring stuff in between. And then there's, heartbreaking news like that. And then early on for me to be thrown into it like that, where you're like, oh man.
You saw all the extremes so quickly.
I've seen all the extremes. Yes. So you're right. So quickly. And I mean, and I'm here to tell you too, I'll talk about like this is why I need to write about all this, is because there's so like, I've been on, and this isn't just in Pensacola, this is in Mobile too, but I've been on so many scenes before first responders arrive, and I've seen stuff that is like, hard to see. I've seen people before they cover them up, like, and it's like that. I think that is why everybody's like, "Hey, at WSRE, like, no, we don't want to see you go." And then Jack, "Hey, we want to keep you on this side of things." Cause like that, it's crazy. It's no one can prepare you for being out there with first responders. No one can prepare you for flying with the Blue Angels, but it's just like high highs and low lows. And, so to answer your question, I do have one specific story that was a humongous catalyst moment for me. It was Hurricane Michael. It's not this. I wasn't working at WEAR at the time. I was working at Fox 10. That was like, 2018, I believe. It was like October of 2018. And I had a moment the night before we were doing coverage where I didn't feel real secure about where we were and how we got there, like literally the physical location we were and the vehicle we were driving. Everything was just very much thrown together. It was like, hey, go chase this storm with, this meteorologist that is excited about it. And it is exciting, especially for, people who are excited about what they're reporting on. That's what you want in news.
Yeah.
And so we were getting, by my standards, not the meteorologist standards, but by my standards, we were getting like as close as possible with flirting with this storm as safely as we could. We were right on the edge of the good side of a hurricane. It was really hairy for a little bit for me because I knew I had a full day ahead of me. We had driven out from Mobile to Panama City and had a hotel, and it was just kind of like throw a dart and like pick a hotel. And I was sitting there on the phone like, well, I mean, we're going to make sure that this is like Cat 5 rated places that we're staying, or like, because the storm, when it was coming in, it was a Category 3, but it was turning up the heat, and it was going to be a 4 by the next morning. They since retrograded it to, it was a Cat 5 hurricane when it hit Mexico Beach.
Goodness.
But so that night before, I was very concerned with my safety, the safety of the crew that I was with. It was just me and another meteorologist, but we had other crews there, and they were all throughout, like sister stations and stuff. So very, very long story short, this was kind of like the first time I think that I really sincerely prayed with a complete trust and belief that not only that does God fully exist, and I fully acknowledge that through me just praying, but it was, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I'm having trouble with the anxiety of what I know I'm going into this next day. There's so much uncertainty of like where the storm, if it's going to turn, if it doesn't, we're the direct hit in Panama City Beach. If it doesn't turn like everybody was saying that it was going to, all the meteorologists. I'm not a meteorologist, so I was just having to trust, what was being told to me. But I know about storm surge, and I know about I know hurricanes can be destructive. So there was a lot of fear there. So I prayed with earnesty of, not only do I believe that you exist, God, but that you love me and you want what's good for me. And that was right then and there, it was this like turning point in my life of whatever you have for me. If I'm to die tomorrow, and I know that sounds like dramatic, but I didn't know. There are moments in your life where you just feel completely there. You don't have control of a situation, and I'm sure everybody has a moment or moments like that in life where they're just like, I don't have any answer for this, and I don't know what to do. And I was just stuck. And so that was my prayer, was just like, and so I fell asleep listening to, I think it was a song, King of My Heart. I just I fell asleep listening to that. And it was just like, you are good, just over and over, just like, the only thing that got me to sleep was knowing that, okay, if I live or die tomorrow, which is how I want to live the rest of my life, I know it's your will, and then in that moment, it was like everything kind of clicked is, man, I've been really selfish. I've been self-centered all my life, especially in that last little stint of like 10 years time in news and all of that era of, me just kind of being self-seeking and just a lot of selfishness, a lot of damage to myself and other people. And, but in that moment, it was like, man, I don't want to live this way anymore. And it was that moment in news, in a very like hairy situation for me, that kind of flipped everything to go, I just don't, I don't want to be living in fear like that anymore. I don't want to worry about anything to that magnitude. I want to trust and believe that not only does God exist, but that He's on my side. And that and that whatever that looks like. I mean, that's very difficult it was difficult for me to fathom that, like, sometimes what we see as bad things happen, like had I died that next day, had we been in the wrong spot, we should have been this place, or the storm didn't turn or whatever.
Yeah.
And then to seal the deal, and I know this is kind of long-winded, but I think it's worth it. To seal the deal, there's so many things that happened that got us out of that hotel that next day. We were supposed to do a lot of coverage. The storm was coming in, and a lot of things happened to get us away from there. My camera got like moisture in it, so it stopped working. So we had to go borrow a camera all the way across town from a sister station, and we were going to come back, but the bridge ended up closing before we could get back from Panama City to Panama City Beach. And I was just like, oh man, now we're going to like get storm surge and all this stuff. And fast forward, the storm rolls in, we're free and clear of it where we're at. We report on it the whole time. Literally we're live on air while it's rolling in, and we have the northwestern side of the storm. So like the best part of it, if you can call it that. It was still terrible, but we were outside kind of sheltered behind a building and just showing everything. And it rolls through. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock. We get in the car. We go back to pick up my camera at the previous hotel. And Zach, I don't know how to even, like, I would have to write a full book about this, but along the way, there were so many things. We had a flat tire. We didn't know it. Somebody stopped us randomly and like flagged us down, like helped us change our tire. We couldn't get the lug nuts off of there was a satellite truck. We couldn't get the lug nuts off because they were like rusted on there. So he had some fix-a-flat, like he helped us fix the truck. And then the further we got towards where we were supposed to be earlier that day, it was more and more damage. Like it was closer to like Mexico Beach, It wasn't anywhere near it, but it was more in the line of the parts of the storm that were like more devastating. So all that just to say, and we got back to the hotel, and I had to wade through like waist deep water to get back to the hotel. And I look where we were supposed to be going live, and the awning and the roof had collapsed in, crushed all these cars. Like, gosh. I was just sitting there going, man, we were right here. This is where we were supposed to be, but we got, redirected because, things that I couldn't control happened, and we got out of where we were supposed to be. So it was crazy. It was just one of those moments where it was just pretty clear to me that, I don't have the reins. So all that long-winded talk just to say that was it. That was the huge moment for me. It was Hurricane Michael coming into Mexico Beach, and us covering that in Panama City. So
all set to the tune of Hello Hurricane by Switchfoot.
Right. Yeah, I was teeing that up.
Yeah, I was just waiting. I was like, if this is Kendall, I was like, how is this not coming to play in this story?
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
Come with us to a tropical getaway like no other. At Babambaboo Bay, all your vacation dreams go beyond anything you dare imagine.
Is that a good thing?
See exotic wildlife.
Huh. That's awesome.
At Babambaboo Bay, you can charter a deep-sea fishing excursion.
This feels wrong.
Personal cabanas featuring luxurious amenities.
That is the biggest possum I have ever seen.
When the sun goes down, things really begin to heat up. Dine by moonlight at Enrile's Hibachi.
My eyebrows are gone!
And dance until of the morning to the soulful sounds of Papa Luvi and the Clumpy Bunch. Let your stress melt away as you swim in the crystal clear waters of Babambaboo Bay.
Babambaboo Bay?
Babambaboo Bay.
Baba Ganoush. Babambaboo Bay? No. Yes? No.
Babambaboo Bay.
All right.
All right. Babambaboo Bay. A vacation like no other.
All right, let's get back to the show. So transitioning from one of your main passions being, documenting and cameras and filming, I want to talk about one of your other interests, which is music. And as long as I've known you, you have been so centered around music, whether that's the bands you're passionate about or actually playing. When did that passion for music come into your life?
So that was even earlier than video and documenting. That was, man, when we have videos of me as a toddler. So far back, I don't remember this. I only have the videos of it, of me in, diapers, banging on pots and pans, right? Like every kid does, whatever, but like holding whatever kind of utensils and like hitting them like it's a drum set or something. And I don't know if that was like set up or somebody was just that they thought it would be funny and make a good video or whatever. But I always enjoyed noise and like, making ruckus, basically what I still do. But no, the earliest was like, it was that and like the little Yamaha keyboard with some presets in it. Like I remember as a kid just hitting buttons and it was like, little like beats would come on and dancing to them, and then playing those keys and making noises and sounds with them and just always being interested in music. So like at an early age, I loved music. I loved listening to music and I guess to me, when I look back, it's funny because I thought that everybody was equally as passionate about music. Like I thought that everyone just invested in it the same way. It was like if you listen to it, then you also want to sing and you want to play an instrument eventually, or you want to do. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was that way for you too, but
I'm with that. Like, how are people not geared towards this? Do you not feel the beat? Do you not have the incessant tapping that you have to be doing on things? Do you not always have the melody? It's interesting how we are all made so different from one another.
Right. And like you, I took piano lessons early, and I didn't take them half as seriously as it sounds like maybe you did. I mean,
no, I definitely was not serious. Miss Deb Robertson, if you're listening, I'm so sorry, but I just did not. I did not take them seriously.
Well, I definitely didn't. My sister and I still joke about this. How I started in 4th grade taking piano lessons, and I was happy to. I mean, I guess I wanted to. Piano was always, I think, every young kid, maybe every young boy, but I don't want to be that specific, probably thinks of the piano as like, man, this isn't cool. I mean, it's like cool, it's music, but it's not like a guitar, you know, it's not rock and roll, but I mean, it is. It's just I didn't know that then.
Our perception in the early to mid 90s was guitar's cool.
Yeah.
Piano's not cool.
Yeah, piano's not cool. It's not the cool thing to do. It's just it's boring because of the music that I was having to play for. My sister and I joked about this. She started taking lessons, I think, a year after I started, and so we would both go to the same piano teacher, and we would scramble. Literally the day of piano lessons. We had a week to practice. The day of, before we'd take the drive it was private lessons. Before we took the drive, we would pull out our songbooks. And I don't know how she did it, but I would just memorize what the song's supposed to sound like. I didn't really even learn the notes, man. Like I memorized what the note should sound like that I'm looking at on the page, which I guess is learning music. But it's almost like tablature, but for notes. I'm shorthanding it. I'm memorizing. Oh, it should sound like that, and have this swing to it or whatever. So I'll play it that way because I know how to just play by ear, and that's what I like. But I don't like reading music. It never was. So my sister and I always joked about how we never took it seriously. We never practiced throughout the week, and I was just wasting my parents' money, because I wasn't. And sorry, mom and dad, but and they knew it too. Because they saw us like pull out the songbooks right before. They're like, we don't have time for you to learn this right now. We got to go. I'm like, but my teacher's going to be mad that I don't know this. I'm like, well, you should have practiced throughout the week,
I don't know how that flew with your mom being the teacher that she was.
Oh, it didn't. What it didn't fly. We ended up canceling the lessons. That's what happened. It was like, if you guys aren't going to take this seriously, which clearly we had shot after shot at taking it seriously, and we didn't. So, yeah. So that was whenever I started. I guess the seriousness of music. It was like, okay, I'm going to start learning how to play. Then after that was middle school band. I picked up the trumpet and actually learned music because you had to. I couldn't play it today, but that was where I learned the majority of the technical ins and outs of what music is, music theory, I guess. I took some music theory classes in college, but it was middle school where I saw some of my friends, while I was in band playing trumpet, saw some of my friends put together it was a band for like a talent show. And like 3 of my friends, one guy was playing bass, one guy was playing electric guitar, and another guy was, I guess, playing keys and singing or something. I was like, man, that's so cool. Like how did they know? Because some of them were in band with me and they played saxophone and trombone and stuff, but they also knew how to play guitar. It was power chords and like Blink-182 covers or whatever. But I was like, it sounds so cool. It was just like the coolest thing to me. And so from that moment on, I was like, I gotta get a guitar. I just want to get a guitar and start playing like my friends. And I think that's maybe Zach, it's like where our worlds are that makes us feel like, oh, everybody does this because all my friends play music. Therefore, everyone else's friends do too. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. Everyone else's friends might be soccer gurus and, know how to play every sport under the sun very well, but I don't,
Right.
But so that was the big jump for me, was like all throughout middle school. Just, I gotta get an electric guitar, which I never did in middle school. It was like, here's an acoustic. Here's like a first act acoustic. Yeah. And I just didn't take it seriously. I was like, well, this isn't what I want. Like, I want to play punk, like pop, punk, rock, I want to be like Reliant K, I want to be like
Reliant K, not Dave Matthews. What is this thing? Take this away.
Right. So, but that was the early interest up through high school. That was when I got really serious about, okay, how do I make this work? Because I do want to learn how to play guitar, and I was somewhat serious about that. So my parents said, you know what? If you really are serious now, we're going to get you an acoustic electric, right? And you said they have guitar class in 9th grade, like you can take that in 9th grade when you go to high school. I was like, yeah. I said, okay, we'll get you that for your birthday, and you take that class, and then we'll just see how you do. And if you like it, if you really do like guitar, we don't want to waste money like we did on piano lessons. If you do want to play, then we'll get you an electric guitar maybe for Christmas. And so I did. I took it really seriously, and I loved playing the acoustic guitar at that point. That was really fun. It wasn't as cool, but I was older and more mature and able to realize, like, well, you do have to start somewhere. Yeah. And what's funny, Zach, is I have that very guitar, and that's like the acoustic electric. I play that all the time. That's what I play out. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not a Gibson or anything. It's a Samet guitar. It's cool. Like it's a great beginner or intermediate guitar, but I've never thought, oh man, I'm like too good for this. It's like, no, this is a good, solid. padded
Well, they
since.
definitely got their money's worth.
In fact, that is funny. I took it to the shop that they got it from. It's actually a buddy in Milton, buddy's friend who owns, his dad owns the shop. Joyful Noise is the name of it.
Yeah.
And I took it there recently. I was like, hey, I want to get like a setup job done on this, just like the action or whatever, adjusted. And his dad said, you said that you bought this from here? I said, yeah, it was probably like 2003. My parents got this here. And he goes, well, setup jobs are free if you bought it here. And I was like, well, that was a long time ago. He's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it. And I was like,
nice.
Man, that's crazy. So yeah,
so
I mean,
cool.
it's the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah.
So when did you go from, okay, I've got my guitar, I've got these six strings and a dream. When did you start writing songs?
Oh man, that's a good question. Probably, did you ever listen to Skillet?
Yeah.
Okay, so me and some friends were listening to Skillet early on, like I think the Alien Youth album came out, and that's
heard that
when
in a
I
long
was
time.
like,
That's funny.
yeah, that album was kind of like, oh man. And a little bit before that, like the Invincible album we were listening to, and I was like, man, I think it'd be cool to start writing some stuff like this. It wasn't even, there was no real decisive thought of I'm going to start writing songs. It was just, I'm going to mimic the stuff that I like. You know, I'm going to mimic doing what I respect in those that do what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And so, it's it's funny to look back on that because it wasn't really like a conscious thing. It was just, hey, they're awful, right? Like those early songs are terrible. I've even looked back. I have a songbook where like some of those early ones, when I was in middle school with the first act, you know, I'm just open strumming the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just strumming and more like playing drums on the acoustic guitar and then singing, you know, things that I thought sounded cool, that I was just mimicking what I was listening to at the time. So they probably sounded like Skillet lyrics or something, you know?
Yeah. But the passion was there.
The passion was there. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if that answers the question. That's when I started, but like getting seriously into it. Man, I guess so. There's a song that I still will play today that I wrote. I think I was 14, so like 14, 15, like late middle school, early high school, right when I was learning how to like play power chords.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really like documenting the songs that I was writing, taking them seriously and playing them with the heart of like, oh, it would be cool for people to listen to this, you know, and to hear these lyrics, and they, you know, if it means something cool, if not, whatever, I'm going to present it anyway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And songwriting is one of those things that it's so close to us. You know, anytime you make something, I don't care if it's taking a picture, if it's painting a picture, if it's baking a cake, you are putting everything you have into making that thing. And when you present a song for somebody, you know, you're like, I wrote this, I've put it together, I've arranged the thing, this is my voice singing it. It is so vulnerable. To me, it is the most like, it's like just standing before somebody just like completely naked. You're like, here it is. Like, this is what I've got. Yeah. And there's no change in it. Like this, you know, and I hope you like it. And, you know, to receive that criticism and to stand and like present your creative baby, man, it is such an amazing feeling when you do present this thing that you've birthed and it's received. You know, there's like a smile on somebody's face, or there's an applause, or there's not that pandering, oh, that's nice, but there's a genuine like, and that's awesome. Mm-hmm. There's no greater feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It's terrifying. You're right, man. It's early on I was terrified. I think it was like a paralysis situation where I didn't even want to share because I thought, well, none of this will ever be worthy of an audience. You know, I'm sure you've felt the same.
Yeah.
I mean, not to harken back to this too much, but you know, just because I recently listened to your story, you know, about playing and leading worship and all this stuff, you know, you feel there's this reticence of like, am I like, I have confidence, but am I what, you know, am I up to this? Am I good enough? You always have that, you know? So I think early on presenting, especially what you're saying, presenting your stuff, words you wrote, stuff you're singing with your vocals, you know, guitar parts or piano parts or drums or whatever that you wrote. You want it to be received well, but you also know it doesn't have to be, because like I'm going to force somebody to like something that they don't honestly like.
Yeah.
You know, so it is terrifying. You want to find the right audience. That's always scary though. That's always going to be frightening, going, you know, I have this thing that I believe in to the degree that I wrote it and I'm presenting it, but does anybody else want to hear it? And what do they have to say about it? And am I prepared to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know?
Yeah. And man, like I've gigged out different places with, you know, bands that have written original music, and it's so exhilarating because you're like, okay, they don't know what to expect from this because it's original. So like if we don't play it well necessarily, or the exactly right, they don't know. It's not like you're doing a cover of something that everybody has locked in their bones. But still going out and like just performing in front of a room, doesn't matter if it's a large room or small room. To me, the smaller, the scarier. I'd rather be in front of 4,000 people than 40. But, you know, going out and expressing this thing, man, it takes guts. It really does. And I don't, you know, I see your videos all the time of you gigging out places, and I'm just like, man, look at them go. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah. Man, it is. You're right. That small room is important though. Like that's what I've been. So for those that don't know, and maybe, I don't even know if you know this, but like I almost exclusively, with rare exception, do open mics. And, I'm in Nashville now, and, I, have only played open mics up here. That's what I was doing back home for a long time, and just along the Gulf Coast, because there was a lot of places I was traveling around to just to play and just get the songwriting out there. But it's scary, but it's also, you know, there's a lot of other people that are doing the same thing. So you can be encouraging of others, and you can be encouraged, and you can talk about things that maybe you're working on, or ideas of things. But what I would say about the smaller room too, why it's important. I used to think of it as like, oh man, if there's not a lot of people here at this open mic or whatever, then, you know, what does it matter if I play well or not? If there's 5 people versus, you know, 100, then if I screw up tonight with 5 people, then it's not going to be as impactful. I would argue, to your point, it's more impactful because those people are counting on like, well, like this is the entertainment tonight, or these are the people. And so I'm really honed in on the person that's up there, you know, with my attention. And you only have 5 of us. So what's the excuse that you didn't really put your full passion into like making me believe what you're singing or what you have to present? So I would say if there's one person in the room, it's like, man, just give it everything, you know, and like really, really connect with that. What it's no secret to you, and maybe not to anybody that knows me, but a huge fan of Switchfoot, and I'm a huge fan of John Foreman. And John Foreman, just watching him over the years interact with the audience, where he makes a conscious effort to break down the barrier between audience and stage.
Oh, yeah.
And I have just soaked that in. I'm like, that is what makes somebody, in my mind, maybe not everybody else, but in my mind, that's what makes somebody just incredible, is being able to say, I'm no different than you. I might have the microphone and I might have some songs to sing, but we're all in this moment together. And I want to completely just like be in this room in one moment together and show that this is like us, not me and you. It's us.
Yeah.
And so I try to take that seriously anytime I'm playing anywhere for anybody. You know, I want to respect people's time and attention. That's so important, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love
I
that.
don't know if that answers.
Yeah, it definitely does. And something I want to ask you about as we're kind of like winding down a little bit, I want to kind of go back a year from where we are now. And I love it. Our paths always just cross in like the funniest ways. Like we said at the beginning. And last year, I remember you'd posted and you're out getting coffee somewhere. And I was like, wait, that's here in Orlando. Like, what in the world? And I was like, dude, let's get together. And it was literally was, within like 30 minutes of seeing it to when we were sitting together, it was such a quick turnaround. And like, I just had a meeting cancel. So my schedule opened up for that day and you were there. And so I don't believe coincidence is a kosher word, to quote Jim Carmack. It's just this thing where it was super wild. And so we got together and you were just kind of in this space of like transition and kind of feeling like you're in this rut, knowing that there was something coming, but you didn't know what that was, but we're still pushing through, like you'd been writing songs, but kind of gigging out, kind of not. And now here you are you're on the other side of that. If you could speak to those that are going through that similar season where they're in that creative rut, how, like, it's the worst feeling. If we're made to be creative, when you're in the space, when you're like, I can't create, I don't know how to, it's like the worst feeling in the world. What do you personally do, or what have you done to get yourself from being in that creative rut to being beyond and really like performing and playing and getting back to, being fully engaged in creating?
Sure. The first thought that comes to mind is sometimes it's just not fun. The thing that you want to, where you see yourself in the future, the best analogy is the gym, right? You want to have muscles, or you want to look a certain way, or you want to lose weight or gain muscle, whatever it is. Okay, well, to get there, there's probably some boring stuff along the way, like putting in reps. And what's funny about that is that that's how I started to see playing open mics when I was still in Pensacola. I was like, well, that's not fun. It's not as fun as like having a band and getting stuff together and writing together and all this. So, no, it's not. But I still need to learn about stage presence and like how to interact with a room. I mean, that's not like super groovy or whatever, but like, it's still, that's a skill I need to sharpen. And so I would just turn up week after week, tired, like super tired from work or whatever. I would just turn up at an open mic that I knew was a consistent one that was available, and just show up, one person or 100 people in the room or whatever it was. And, and just put in those reps, even if it was a song I wasn't feeling at the time, and it eventually got to a place where I was like, man, so I would sit down on the couch at home afterwards and reflect on playing, and be like, well, what I could do next time is this, because it seems like the audience engaged with this. Or, when I recorded a song and I showed it to these people, they interacted and engaged with these parts, or this was their feedback. And so, maybe I didn't want to write something or record something or play out one week, but I did it because it was just putting in a rep. I think there was a book. I don't know if have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I haven't.
It's a really good one. And in it, he's talking to somebody that was like the coach, I think, of some Olympic athletes. And he was asking what it takes to make some of these folks great, or any Olympian? What does it take? And he's like, man, you honestly, sometimes you just have to fall in love with boring things, which is like putting in your reps, and like, and being content with doing things that are behind the scenes that just aren't like glorious, and sometimes that's writing a song and being like, oh, that's trash, throw it away and start over, So in the creative rut, I would say that just start with something, just write something terrible, just go play a terrible open mic, go put in the rep, and then do it again next week, and then do it again next week, and then do it until you have built these habits that become who you are. That's what the book is about, Atomic Habits, these small habits that change the whole course of your life because they stack,
That's so great.
Yeah. That's what
just go out there and do it. Mm-hmm. And I love that it's, go have a crappy set. Yeah. Write a crappy song, like in the reflection, like you're saying on your couch, just to sit there and go, what do we do different next time?
Exactly. Yeah. It's always learning, just always be receptive. And I want to say this too, because I think it's important that, I didn't, I made a move from home and to be more around a creative city like Nashville, not to offer up anything, but to learn, that's if we take that posture in life of just like, what can I learn? And like the greatest of you is your servant kind of thing. I just want to come in and like, what can I help in any way? And also like, what can I receive that maybe I don't know? It's like it's an awesome posture to have, because people are always willing. Somebody who's humble, they're always willing to be like, man, yeah, I'd love to help out,
Yeah.
So
that's really great. I love that.
Yeah.
So one final question, very serious question.
Okay.
In your opinion, what makes the perfect cup of coffee?
Oh, man, that's a good question, dude. I was hoping you would ask about coffee, dude. That's great. Perfect cup of coffee.
Because there's few people that I know that really enjoy coffee and the process of coffee, as much as I do than you. And so I was like, I have to bring up coffee.
Likewise, Zach. Yeah, you do. Man, I am a pour over king. I love a good pour over, and the water temperature is everything. The bloom of the pour. You want to make sure that you got fresh beans. I think a good cup of coffee is truly, and this is serious, like you have to have the right roast of fresh beans, and it has to be freshly ground. And that's basically it. You can't go wrong there. So
do you have a favorite, like not just roaster, but do you have like where you want your beans to come from?
Oh yeah. Do you?
I really like Guatemalan.
Okay.
I mean, Colombian's great too, but just my dad's done a lot of work with missionaries and things like that. So I've had beans from all over the world. Yeah. And so there's certain things that I'm like, ooh, I don't really like, that doesn't hit, but like Nicaraguan beans are great.
Yeah.
But I think it might be, but I think it's Guatemalan.
I'll answer that, but what is your least favorite? Do you know that? What region?
Probably Kenyan or Ethiopian. There's something about the soil, I think, that gives it more of like an acidic taste. And for me personally, just like my palate, my stomach, it doesn't love me back.
Yeah. So you and I are flipped on that. We both respectfully love coffee together, but I absolutely love Ethiopian coffee.
Wow. Okay.
Like any Ethiopian bean, or Kenya, Uganda. Actually, look at this, dude. This is what I just brewed. This is from Uganda. It's can you tell the blueprint? I got like a subscription, so they just trade stuff out every week. But no, I think you're spot on that it's more acidic, it's more floral and like fruity from Ethiopia. But Guatemala is one of my least favorite. I like it, but it's one of my least favorites. It's very
That's amazing.
Like, dry to me. So
so that's funny. So you're a pour over an Ethiopian. Mm-hmm. I'm like a Guatemalan Chemex guy.
Okay.
And I see your Chemex in the back, and that just made me so happy.
Oh yeah.
Not just a flower pot on Friends. It's an actual.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that was in the shot. But yeah, I was on standby in case I needed more coffee.
Always more coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you rocking this evening? You drinking anything?
This evening I am drinking Oak Hill Farm coffee, which
Nice.
is I'm not sure which blend this is, but it's Lindell and Amber Cooley roast this in just in your neck of the woods. Actually,
Yep.
they're in I think they're in Columbia, Tennessee.
That's
now.
actually where I live. So
Okay, yeah,
I need to get some of that coffee.
yeah. I
So-
think this is the espresso roast, and I'm very happy. All their different roasts are named after their horses, which I think is kind of cool.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I'm just black coffee, and you don't usually need much else.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
Well, Kendall, thanks for being here. Thanks for just sitting and talking and reminiscing and sharing just your journey with me and with everybody that's listening here.
Thanks, Zach. It was a pleasure, man.
Thank you for joining Kendall and I for our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you did, please tell a friend. And if you'd take just a moment to leave a 5-star review on your favorite streaming platform, you can also share this or any of our other episodes with a friend. The Zach Brown Show is produced by me, Zach Brown, and Corey Jess, and it's part of the Zach Brown Network. Our album art is made by Luis Lopez. Our outro music is Nurse by Corey Jess. You can stream that on Spotify or iTunes. You can also follow Corey on Instagram at corey.jess.productions. You can also follow our show on Facebook or Instagram at The Zach Brown Show.